Welcome to the Cardboard Crash Course. My name's Ethan, and today I'm going to be ranking all 25 Twilight Imperium factions from the 4th edition of the game. This is not going to be a power level ranking. Instead, it's going to be my favorites. Power level does have a significant role in this tier list, because it is more fun for me to play casually with my friends with a more powerful faction than it is with a faction that I have to try very, very hard to get off the ground and running. The reason for this is because the power levels of the factions have really been beaten to death, and the community has a general consensus of the meta of the game at the moment. If you'd like to see my take on that list anyway, I can go ahead and make that video as well. Just let me know you want to see it down in the comments. I'm going to talk in depth a little bit about each faction as I rank them, as to why I've put them there, what makes them so fun, what makes them a little bit more powerful than all the others, and what special place they have in my heart. If you want to rank the tier list like this, you can also join the Discord and go ahead and leave your tier list down there. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Let me show you how I'm ranking them. So the tier list has a few things about it that I'd like to point out right away. Now, first, we're going to be going through this in alphabetical order, starting with the Arborec and ending with the Asarl tribes. The reason for this is just because I wanted to mix it up a little bit. I didn't want to start with the worst and end with the best because I think the factions generally have a fun playstyle to most players, and I don't want to completely get the bad ones out of the way right away. You'll have to wait a little bit for that. As far as the actual tiers go, I've got the very top is the S tier. This is my absolute favorite. I'm only going to put one faction in that when we come along to it, because I would like to put one at the top above all the others. But right below it is going to be where a lot of the factions, Consistent Fun is the name of this one. I could choose these factions and every single time I would have a blast playing them. Right below that is the Will Choose Regularly tier. This is the tier that I don't have consistent fun every moment I'm playing them, but I will choose them on a regular basis, and I don't think they're a waste of time to play at all. Right below that is the Will Choose Sometimes. This, of course, is very dependent on what others are picking. I still will have fun with them every once in a while, but I'll play them when the time really comes for it. And the very bottom is unfortunately the pay-to-play tier. Basically, you would have to pay me to play these. Either that or I would have to be making a faction guide on them. I think with one of the recent faction guides, you may know where one of these factions lie. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start with the Arborec here. I think I'm going to go ahead and put this in Will Choose Regularly. So the Arborec in the base game, I think, is probably a Will Choose Sometimes, if not even a pay-to-play tier. But with the bonuses from Prophecy of Kings, especially the mech, where you can deploy this using the mitosis ability, as well as the agent. The agent was a big boost for them. The ability to replace your ships with something too larger fixed their start. They only originally had one carrier, but they did start with 4 infantry. Basically, the reason that they have this ability is to replace that cruiser with another carrier. I do think that this was a huge buff because the way the Arborec works is they are exponentially good, and the fact that they start off so much better at the beginning really put them up there for me. The hero is also a ton of fun. It's super situational, which I didn't think was going to be the case when Prophecy of Kings was coming out, but the ultrasonic emitter, that hero, is really one of the reasons that I would choose them regularly. They're not completely consistent throughout the game fun, because like I said, they have that rough start, so that's why they didn't hit it in the tier right above them. Next is the Argent Flight. Let's see. They do some serious damage. I know I was gushing over them in the faction guide. Let's see. Okay, I'm probably going to put them in the Consistent Fun. I don't think I've had a moment playing the Argent Flight or playing against them, especially, that they've really ruined the experience for me or anything like that. I think my group was underestimating the power of destroyers right away. When we first started playing this game, especially in the base game, they really had nothing to interest a new player with, but the upgraded destroyers that Strikewing Alpha is so much fun because the more advanced you get with the game, the better they are. You realize that the anti-fighter barrage still goes off even if there are no fighters in the enemy system. They're just kind of like this godly little ship that you can send out and capture objectives with. And they also have that defensive capability, kind of like the X-Cha, which the X-Cha is definitely going high up for me. A little spoiler alert. So yeah, the Argent Flight all-arounder with the defensive and offensive capabilities is definitely in that consistent fun territory, for sure. Okay, the Barony. They're probably consistently fun in the base game compared to what they could do with other factions there. The bonus 2 to the command counters, essentially in the fleet pool, is nice because you can redistribute after the first round to buff up your strategy pool. And I think the strategy pool buff up with them is more important than fleet pool. I would say we'll choose sometimes. The reason is they didn't really get a fun bonus in POK as much as I was wanting it. They do have the mech, which is a nice little bonus. They've got that hero that they can throw all of their ships into one system, so they're kind of good at swinging for an objective or for Rex, but I don't have enough interest in them to make their idea of a big ship and big military faction that interesting. The interest for that just really doesn't fall for me. I do like being sort of this overpowering race, but I think if I'm going to play a space game like Twilight Imperium, I want a little bit more of a supernatural sort of alien type. So they're interesting. They're definitely for somebody, and they were a lot of fun in the base game, but I just think they lost something in POK. So yeah, they're definitely going in the we'll choose sometimes category. All right, now for the Cabal. The Cabal. I'm going to put in consistent fun. The capture mechanic, and if you're watching this, one of my best buddies loves the Cabal, so he was really, hoping, I'm sure, that I would put them up there. But yeah, the Cabal's capture ability, it's not like crazy good like I was expecting it to be. In the faction guide for the Cabal, I was talking about how they should be consistently aggressive from round 1. I didn't think when first getting this game that I would be interested in that type of playstyle, but the fact that they kind of detriment the less combat you go into is a hard thing to grasp. I think I would have put them in the will choose sometimes category if you had asked me a couple of weeks after POK came out. But once I got a grasp on that aggressive nature, and especially with that agent that allows you to just freely capture units, and that technology that just lets you capture things next to dimensional tears, it's a lot of fun. They're just passively taking things away from other players, and a lot of the time in games like MOBAs or first-person shooters, you don't want to have that feel bad of taking things away from people, taking agency away from people. But I don't think in Twilight Imperium it's too bad, because what they're really going to be going for are those dreadnoughts and everything, where people have multiples of. So I think it's fine. Consistent fun is definitely where they belong for me. Okay, Empyrean. There's one player in my friend group who played Empyrean and didn't know how to use them, and I was kind of watching him flop around and not truly understand. Okay, I'm going to choose the will choose sometimes because of a specific reason. Do you get to know the map beforehand? If I do get to know the map beforehand, then the Empyrean could definitely be a good choice if I get to pick where I sit and pick where my home system goes. I know their gimmick isn't all about that deep space, and it really only has to do with their hero. They're more about a trading faction. But if I'm going to play a trading faction, I'm just going to play the Hakan or even the Soul. I mean, yeah, I don't want to be basic, but that's just how that is. They're not good at taking Mechatol Rex, so they're not really good at being neighbors with everybody, which is kind of their fun playstyle that they had, and being able to give out those promissory notes is cool. But I am a junkie for Dark Energy Tap exploration abilities. It's just simple fun to me, especially with that new Codex that came out, which I'll link in the description. The randomness of the Dark Energy Tap is really fun if you can sit next to some empty space to begin with. But the Empyrean, it's only really fun in that scenario. They're kind of bland otherwise. Okay, Ghosts. Yeah, they're going in consistent fun. Yeah, The Wormhole Nexus, I think, brought them into a new life for me. I would have put them in the will choose regularly, or even will choose sometimes. Probably will choose regularly before. But the interest in creating gamma wormholes, I think, just opened up a new playstyle for me. They are a powerful faction. I think they lost a little bit in the Prophecy of Kings expansion in terms of power, because I've never been able to consistently get their commander off, and their agent is a lot of fun, but it's more situational than I would like. They do just start off with that 4 commodities, and they do just have a couple of good faction abilities. Getting your home system one more away than everybody else is nice. This is a great faction to give new players to if you just want to show them the fun side of the game and they don't really care about power. Yeah, consistent fun is where they belong for sure. I just think the randomness, the RNG of the wormholes, whether I get to choose my seating on the map before or if it's still random after I pick the faction, I still think I have consistent fun with Kreyas. Throughout the game, I don't think it dips at all. That's definitely where they belong. Okay, Hakan. I was just talking about with Cabal that I like to be aggressive. I like to take things. I like to kind of make people feel bad in the game, which is not the type of person I am outside of the game. It's just sort of my escape and my reason to be aggressive. Hakan's powerful. They're powerful, so I can't put them in the will choose sometimes category, but I don't necessarily want to put them in consistent fun. I'm going to put them in the will choose regularly. I will have fun throughout the game playing Hakan just because of their self-sufficient power. But their trade ships and their 6 commodities, I don't really have too much interest in. I don't like being the friendly player. I would rather save that for something like playing Commander in MTG with a group hug deck or something, but I don't need to group hug in Twilight Imperium. I'm out for blood. Like I said, their power level definitely has something to do with it, so they're up there, and the hero being able to just kind of make anything you want, similar to the Arborec, puts them in that will choose regularly alongside them. Okay, Universities of Jolnar. When this video uploads, the Jolnar will most likely be the next faction guide after that. So stay tuned for that. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. So I do have some recent interest in Jolnar. In the base game, they were unstoppable. I would have put them probably in the top of consistent fun, if not absolute favorite. But they have something about them in POK where they almost have too many options that it's not fun, and each of the options mean a little bit less. Because the game is a lot more about exploration, it's about relics, it's about so many things, leaders, and all of this crazy everything happening at once, I think the technologies almost mean less. I don't think they mean nothing. This does not make the Jolnar bad, but I have to put the Jolnar in will choose regularly, probably above the Arborec and Hakan. Yeah, so that's where they belong, right there. They're at the top of will choose regularly. I love the hero ability, being able to swap out all of those. In the faction guide, I'm going to touch on how you shouldn't just go for the highest powerful technologies, because you might need something that'll fix your game instead of push it to the next level. Yeah, will choose regularly is where they belong. Powerful, good, self-sufficient, kind of aggressive. That -1 doesn't hurt like nearly as much as you would expect as a new player, so they're not too fragile. A lot of fun. Would definitely choose them regularly. All right, the Council Colaris, introduced recently in the Vigil Codex, the Codex 3. I'm going to link that down below as well. I just did a faction guide on them, again in the playlist up there. I did discuss how they only have one interesting hero. They only really have a reason to go for the Mentak. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to put the Colaris in will choose sometimes. Probably above Empyrean. No, they're going below Empyrean. You wouldn't have to pay me to play them, but you would definitely have to convince me as to why I should play them in that game. The Mentak hero is a lot of fun with them. The starting planets is nice when you do choose the Mentak. They just have no reason to not choose Mentak. It is really kind of unfortunate. If they actually were balanced between the 3, it would have been like adding 3 new factions, but it really is only like adding 1. Their interesting lore ability where they get to ignore laws doesn't come up nearly as much as I would want it to. The laws in Twilight Imperium are kind of the most lacking thing in my opinion. I do hope if we ever get a 5th edition that they would revamp the agenda deck and really make it change the game, because that's what I expected when I got into the game. So they do have that really interesting mech ability where they get to lock out almost completely with all those instances of influence. No, they gotta choose. Will choose sometimes. I will probably play them again in my life, but it's not gonna be anytime soon. Really nice that we have them in the game though. I like their lore. They don't seem shoehorned in. They're present, they're good, they're just not my playstyle. Okay, L1Z1X, another aggressive race. This was going in the will choose regularly at the very top of that. They're not consistent fun. I don't think their bombardment abilities go off nearly as much as I would like, but they do have that assimilate ability. The assimilate ability, I think, pushes them over the edge in terms of getting at the top of this tier. The commander was a huge push for them. Being able to bombard things that still have planetary shield, I think comes out of nowhere. When you're playing against a new player, you can really crush them using that. Don't do that. Don't make enemies with your friends. Their dark space navigation, that hero, is kind of an overpowered and yet underpowered nomad ability, and I'd rather just use the nomad hero instead of this one, I think. They're a little less than consistent fun because I find them to be lacking in some categories, but I would definitely choose them regularly for sure. They belong in the top of that tier. Okay, Mahak Gene Sorcerers. They are going at the top of consistent fun. They're not my absolute favorite, but this is the exact type of playstyle that I'm talking about when it comes to aggressive in the worst way. They are competing with Cabal for being a big jerk faction. They get to move people around using their hero, sort of crash people into each other. They can warfare themselves all the time, so they have that power behind them. I played Mahakt as my first faction, actually twice when Prophecy of Kings first came out. They're so much consistent fun. I never have a moment in the game where I don't want to keep playing them. The fact that they allow you to be a jerk, but also have that self-sufficient power, especially in that Ghost of Kraos infantry, whatever that's called. Let me find that. Crimson Legionnaire. The Crimson Legionnaire, a nice little buff. They could definitely take Mechatol Rex if needed. I don't think their starting planet is that bad. It's not the best, but it's not that bad. Yeah, oh yeah, they're consistent fun. They're a lot of fun. They definitely belong in that tier for sure. I would like to interrupt for just a moment. If you've made it this far, you probably like my content. If you haven't subscribed already, go ahead and hit subscribe. Almost 90% of the viewers of this channel are not subscribed to the channel. If you love Twilight Imperium content or any other board games that I may touch on, subscribing is a perfect free way to support me. And if you really like this content and you want to see more, go ahead and check out the Patreon. Did you know that patrons actually voted on this video to see it? Not only that, but they do get to see this video in early access. So they've already watched it, possibly commented. I don't know. Hi, patrons. You get all sorts of benefits, like discounts on merch like this, giveaways in the Discord for things like Twilight Inscription that's going on right now, your name at the end of the credits, voting on and seeing videos early, and so many more. If you have any interest in that, please check that out, if not only to let me know how I can improve the tiers to the point where you would consider pledging. But without further ado, sorry for the interruption, let's get back to the tier list. Alright, Mahakt is done, and moving on to Mentak. You would have to pay me to play Mentak. I know, this is probably going to come as a surprise, but I actually think mirror computing is too good. I have no interest in playing Mentak because I don't want that power. Mentak is the worst type of aggressive race for me. They get to be a jerk without actually destroying anything. They just get to sort of take a little bit here and there. It's similar to a necrovirus ability, but with trade goods instead of technology. And I just don't want the power of mirror computing. If you're a min-max player that loves to just build a ton of stuff, be the biggest army in the game, all of a sudden, everything's worth more, yeah, sure, go ahead, play Mentak. I know they're great for people like that. I am not dissing you, but they're just not for me. Mirror computing allows one trade good to be spent as two. They also just take over the agenda phase all of a sudden as well. They're not quite as good as getting as many trade goods as something like the Nomad, but they just get so much value out of them. It would be too tempting for me not to get it. There's no point not to get mirror computing, but it's just not fun because it's pushing the too powerful category. If this was a co-op game, that ability would be great. Too powerful is not a problem in co-op games. I'm looking at you, Marvel Champions. But as far as Twilight Imperium goes, this game takes such a long time and is such an investment that I've made with my friends and with the community that I just don't want to spend my game doing that, unfortunately. But that's okay, it's out there for someone. Next up is Embers of Muat. Muat. You have to go in consistent fun. I would say probably above the Kraus, below the Cabal. Can you tell I like gimmicks? If I'm trying to win, a lot of these factions in the consistent fun category, I wouldn't choose because, yes, I know they're not the most powerful. They do have power to them, and I can't play a race with nothing, but Muat just has that gimmick that I love. Starting off with a War Sun technology, and then being able to go into that prototype War Sun 2 is so much fun. The one thing that probably makes it more consistently fun for me is when I do periodically get those games in person, we allow the Kraus to start off with at least one wormhole, the Empyrean to start off with at least one deep space tile, and the Muat to start off nearest in their pie slice to a supernova. I know this is a huge bonus to them, but this doesn't completely swing them. Even if that wasn't the case, even if there wasn't even a supernova on the board, I still think I would love Muat. Being able to turn something into a supernova is really more of a tactical option, in my opinion, with that technology that allows you to produce out of supernovas than it is an aggressive option. But if you do get it off in an aggressive way, just nuking the hell out of one person is it's really fun. I think theirs and the Kraus's heroes are probably the flashiest, which is probably why they're right next to each other as well. The Muat definitely have some power, and POK added a lot more by boosting up that Starforge of theirs with the mech. Going into another faction that has a gimmick. This gimmick is a lot more powerful, but I don't know if it makes the faction more powerful overall, and I don't know if it makes them more fun. The Nalu Collective. Nalu. I would choose them regularly, I think. And they're going right smack dab in the middle, right in between Arborek and Hakan. Yeah, that looks good. The Nalu Collective's zero token gimmick is similar to that of the Mentak's mirror computing, where it's just simply more powerful than everything else that tries to do something similar. But I don't think it's as game-changingly good, especially not because you actually start with it, so it's a tool of theirs and not just a random boost they get later in the game. The zero token can definitely win you the game in that 5th or 6th round, however long you're going into, but you need to be good at the game to get there in the first place. They're a little less aggressive than I appreciate because they're really more about escaping at the last moment, but they can do some damage with those fighters. Hybrid crystal fighters are a nice little boost. Do not underestimate them. I know I have in the past. Yeah, the Nalu Collective, I would definitely choose them regularly, but they have those dips that don't make them consistent fun throughout the game. Okay, another new one, the Nazroka Alliance. I really hope that's how you say it. Nazroka, I have no idea. But I'm going to call them the Nazroka Alliance. They are definitely, without a doubt, going in the consistent fun category. In fact, I think they're going above the Kraus and even the Argent Flight. Yeah. They're the second most consistent fun so far, for sure. Right below the Mahakt there. I was probably the most excited for Nazroka when it came to POK. Either them or Titans, just like visually and because of their gimmicks and everything. The fact that they're a mech and exploration faction was just fun to me, so I did play them in an early game of POK, right behind the couple of games of Mahakt. I know that another player, the one who unfortunately played Arborek and Sardek Nor as his first two, I'm sorry if you're watching, has definitely come to appreciate the game more because of Nazroka. So that might have something to do with it, but also, relics are not a gimmick. They are consistent power. they can create relics early in the game and really boost themselves up. They have this RNG element to them, but they are all consistently good that I think it's worth going for right away. And if you have that knowledge of the game and know that you have the last relic fragment of a certain type or whatever, using it for command counters is a lot of fun as well. Do not underestimate the Nazraka Alliance, and don't underestimate their mechs in the sky. The flipping of the mech is a lot of fun. I don't ever have a moment where they're not consistently fun because they're just exploring, then exploring more and getting new planets and exploring those planets when they drop and re-exploring the planets and doing it twice. And they always have something going on. There's never a dull moment with Nazraka. So yeah, they belong in the consistent fun category. Absolutely. Oh, shoot. My mic came off. Oh, okay. Okay, Necrovirus. Necrovirus was probably way up there for me in the base game. I would probably have put them in consistent fun, probably the top of it. They've dropped down to mid to low consistent fun. I would say directly behind the Cabal. They're comparable to Cabal for sure for me. Do not think that that's because they're like the same. In both of their faction guides, I mentioned each other because people tend to think that the Cabal was just a new version of the Necro. They're not. The Necro plays in a much more conniving, menacing, evil way than the Cabal does. The Cabal just simply eats things from the moment they get off the gate. They destroy and everything, but this section's about the Necro. So the Necro are more about picking off races, a little bit here, a little bit there, even bartering for those technologies. And I actually like when I don't vote in the agenda phase. Like I said, I would appreciate if the agendas were a little bit more interesting, even if we got just a pack. FFG, if you're listening, if we just got a pack where it was a revamped agenda deck, where we would maybe have to remove half of it and add a new half to make the agendas that much more game-changing and powerful, I would pay for that. I would pay a lot of money for that, premium money for that, because that would just make it just so much more fun. I am getting off of the Necro once again, though. So they start off like that, but they end the game being a huge nuisance. And the infantry that can participate in space combat is so funny when you hit Mechatol Rex and people don't realize how much you have protecting it in the sky. Yeah, no, Necro belongs in consistent fun. I don't ever have a dull moment with them. They're really great. Okay, Clan of Sar. I don't even know if I would choose them sometimes. I think you'd have to pay me to play Clan of Sar. Yeah, I know they're up there in power. I know they are. Don't get me wrong. I know where all of these factions lie in terms of raw power, but the Clan of Sar is just boring. It's just tedious. They just have not that much brain power going into them, I don't think, which is a lot of fun at times. And I think if I was doing like a late night game or something, Sar might be fun because you don't really have to think too hard. But the Sar ball, as people call it, where you just move those ships out of your home system, move everything together and just keep growing and growing and growing, is hilarious to see across the table. And I almost always hope that there is a Sar player in the game because they're hilarious to watch. But for me, they're just not that fun to play. There's only really one playstyle with them, and that's a roll towards where the objectives belong. That's just from my experience, though. You might have some other interesting points about the Clan of Sar, and if you don't like where I've put these pay-to-play factions, then go ahead and let me know what I missed. But POK just kind of extended upon that, and I think their hero's really weird. It's fine, but it just doesn't belong with them. Being able to like gun down an adjacent system works mechanically, but thematically, I don't get it. I just don't get it. If there's some kind of reason in the books or something that I missed, then let me know, but I just don't get their hero. And the hero means a lot to me, especially in casual games. So yeah, pay to play is where the Sar belong, unfortunately. Now the Nomad. I recently covered the Nomad as well in a recent faction guide. The Nomad is also, I would choose him sometimes. He's going at the bottom of will choose sometimes. He's right above Mentak. He's really, really good at making those resources, and that's another reason why I don't think I love him. He's good, sure, or they are good. I have no idea. Does it say on the faction sheet? I don't think it says on the faction sheet if it's a guy or girl or many people or whatever. The Nomad, I think it's just a little bit tedious as well, but less so than the Tsar. They definitely have more options. As far as the flagship hero goes, it's a lot of fun to sort of go across the whole map all at once. So it's not like they're doing that just slowly throughout the game. But to me, thematically, they're kind of just a worse Kratos, and theme definitely has a lot to do with my fun factor of the game. The Nomad belongs in Will Choose sometimes. Once again, their mech and their flagship working together are good. They start off with a couple good technologies. They have that interesting way of making a ton of trade goods. They're a great banking system. They have a lot of neighbors. All things that one player may have interest in, but I just do not. Sorry, I'm more of a punch you in the face guy. Okay, Sardak Nor. I don't know whether the faction guide is gonna go up before or after this video for the Sardak Nor, because it's like coming out right at the same time. But if you have already seen it, or you're coming from that video into this one, you know exactly where I'm gonna put this guy. At the very bottom of the very bottom tier. I am so sorry, Sardak lovers. They have a ton of fun, interesting lore, are just not interesting to me. I don't have an interest in the planet hopping, because if I'm going to do that, I'd rather just play Xcha. If I'm going to hit planets without having to fight in the air, I would rather just play Nalu. And you know what? I'm gonna say it. It bothers me. The fact that Sardak Nor is the only one without a "the" at the beginning of the name makes me mad. It makes me upset. Does anybody else get bothered by this? That's abhorrent. Of like every single other faction, even just like generic races have "the" in front of their name, but Sardak Nor doesn't. I know it's like a holdover from the first edition, but if we get another edition of the game, please fix this. Or if any of you have a fix that I could print off as a PDF, I would literally rather have a printed off laminated sheet that says "The Sardak Nor" than just Sardak Nor. Anyway, that has really very little to do with its ranking. I promise that almost nothing, if not nothing. But the Sardak Nor, I just don't have interest in terms of their general playstyle mechanics. They start slow, in the mid game they're slow, in the end game they're slow. You still can win if you're really good at the game, but believe it or not, I'm not like a god at this game. I would say that I'm pretty decent and know the mechanics really well to be able to teach you, and that's why I started the faction guides to begin with. In terms of like minute-to-minute gameplay, I just don't have enough in me to make up for what the Sardak lack. And unfortunately, you'd have to give me about $200 in order to play the Sardak again. Sorry. Okay, moving away from my rant and moving into a faction that I would play, Sol is going towards the top in consistent fun. They are jerks. They take Mechatol Rex, they hold it. You know what? Do I put it at the top of consistent fun? No, they're going right above Argent Flight. Yeah. Yep, that works. Yep. Okay, the reason is because they rush from Mechatol Rex, they slam down on it, they hold it. But they don't have to pick Mechatol Rex as their goal. They can hit any specific planet, and they're actually one of the best at eliminating players by taking their home systems. Again, in a game like a video game, you don't want that feel-bad elimination, and I don't really want to eliminate my friends, but if I'm playing with random people, or even just acquaintances, or friends that play more often, then I don't mind eliminating people. It's just part of the game. In terms of the actual power level of Sol, they're really far up there for me, because I can utilize their command counter economy to a great extent. That's also a reason why the Necro are up here. I missed that talking about the Necro. But the Sol are just a lot of fun. They also create more plastic on the board, not just for you, but for other people with their high commodities and their promissory notes, sort of giving out your orbital drop to somebody who's about to take up system out in the other side of the galaxy, incentivizes them to fire at another person, and the Sol incentivizing warfare and also firing first themselves is just like the humans. It's not weird for me to play a self-insert human race in a game like this. So yes, this is where Sol belongs, real far up there, below Mahact and Nazroka. Okay, we've got the final 5. You still haven't seen my absolute favorite, and you still haven't seen the last pay-to-play, so hold off just a moment. Before we get there, though, I'm going to put the Titans of Ul in Will Choose Regularly, right above the Arborek. The reason for this is they kind of have like a similar theme to the Arborek. Their power is much higher, though. They are probably one of the most powerful factions in the game. Like I said, I've reviewed the power tier lists and everything, and I've watched Space Cats, Peace Turtles forever. If you're watching this, Hunter or Matt, you are my heroes, by the way. Just a little side note. But yeah, would choose the Titans of Ul regularly. They have that sort of monotonous play style, similar to that of like the SAR, but it's more interesting to me because you actually get like this weird gimmick going on of building up to your flagship and then building a bunch of PDS behind it. And that's just a lot of fun to me. Their hero is also just fantastic because there's no way you can be bad with it. You just use it as soon as you get it. There's no real thinking about it. So it kind of combines the unfun playstyle of SAR and the unfun playstyle of not really thinking about anything, but in a weird mesh of cool giant robots that live inside planets or possibly are the planets that it just does it for me. It's just cool sci-fi. It's so good. Yeah, Titans of Ul, would choose them regularly. Would have a lot of fun with them for sure. All right, moving on to the X-Cha. The X-Cha, they're going right below Argent Flight. No, right above Argent Flight. Yeah, right above Argent Flight. They're consistent fun. The X-Cha are weirdly aggressive and take agency away from other people by being able to end their turns, which is hilarious. And also, they don't really get touched. They're so defensive. They're turtles. Obviously, they don't get touched. They had that cool hero where you choose 5 and then vote on 2 yourself. I was really interested in that hero. I thought it was going to be a lot of fun. And then I realized once POK came out, they didn't fix the agenda deck, and it also just sucked from the beginning. So they needed to get away with that. The new political data nexus. When you exhaust planets, combine the values of their resources and influence, treat the combined values as if it was both resources and influence. A much more interesting ability than something like mirror computing. The fact that they get this sort of passive hero and they're the first ones to do so are kind of future-proofing. I hope we get more factions for this game. I know a lot of you hope we don't, but if we got 5 more in a pack, that would be so perfect. It would bring us back up to that multiples of 6 that you use for tournaments. And you could have a couple more passive heroes in either that or codexes in the future. I think passive heroes are really interesting because they sort of change your game in a fun way. But theirs isn't so immensely, immediately powerful like mirror computing is that I think I just run away with the game with it. So they're right below this Federation of Sol because they play completely different, but the Argent Flight and them are right next to each other because I kind of just can't decide between the two, which one I like the most. I do like the aggressive abilities of Argent Flight, but I like the agency denial that the X-Cha provide. It's a lot of fun. Okay, Yin Brotherhood. Yin Brotherhood, I would choose them sometimes. They're going above the Nomad and below the Caleris. The Yin Brotherhood got a lot of good benefits, not only with the POK expansion, but also with the Codex. The Codex gave them the new Yin Spinner. This is after you produce units, place up to 2 infantry on a planet. The old one said after you use production, place 1 infantry. That's so much worse because production is included in producing, and there's so many other ways with exploration and everything that they can produce. That being said, their mech is just kind of, it's not that interesting. They definitely have that fun, flashy hero as well as their fun, flashy flagship, so they're out there for a race. I almost wish I had the Yin as a partner. If I had the Alliance out with the Yin and I had their Alliance promissory note to be able to satisfy a green technology prerequisite, then I would love them in the game. I need the Yin in the game to have fun with them without actually playing them, similar to the SAR. So they're better than the SAR and all of them, but I would only choose them every once in a while. Second to last is the Isarl tribes. I would choose them regularly, right above the Jolnar, right below the L1Z1X. Below the L1Z1X because they're not aggressive and they're not present like a lot of the factions that I love, but above the Jolnar because they kind of have this similar idea to them. The Jolnar just keep building up with cards on the table, whereas the Isarl tribes keep building up with cards in their hand. To be completely fair, I think the Jolnar are better because it's consistent, you know what you're getting, but the Isarl tribes get so many more stalls, especially utilizing their stall tactic ability, and their agent, that is just every other agent at the table, it's just plain fun. I mean, sometimes you just have to have a cool factor, and having that out is just a lot of fun, even if you only use it, 3 or 4 times in the game. So I'm not going to spend too much time on Isarl tribes, but that action card economy is just a lot of fun. Stalling out is a great way to play the game. If you've been paying attention to the channel, you know exactly why this is coming next. Winnu is going in my absolute favorite. I love the Winnu. When I made the faction guide early on in POK, I was uninterested in making my love for the Winnu deeper. But I think every time I play them, I just appreciate them so much more. There's something about being an underdog. There's something about being a sort of pretentious little jerk, but still an underdog. Man, they sucked in the base game. There was no reason to play them. They still kind of suck. But the hero is just so much fun. And their mech, being able to deploy that PDS or space dock down on planets as you explore them, not having to take the construction card, and being able to utilize Imperial that much more, man, the Winnu just got so much better, and they swing games so much. Being that underdog throughout the game, starting with that really low amount of power, everybody goes, oh, the Winnu, especially when I play in pink like I usually do. They go, oh man, Ethan's playing the Winnu again? Oh, don't worry about him. But they forget every single time how much you can swing in a single turn. I think, including the Crown and Tomb of Infidia, I managed to swing 6 points in one turn before, which is a lot for my group. And they all started to freak out and couldn't knock me off until 3 different players took me on in Rex. I have no interest in letting them leave my top spot anytime soon, unless I play a crazy game with Sol or Mahakt or something, but that would be you'd have to really convince me to get rid of the Winnu as my top spot. So here's the tier list. Take one last look at it, and then we'll get out of here. So here we have it. The final faction tier list for all of the 25 factions in Twilight Imperium 4th edition. What do you think of my tier list? I'd love to hear all of your comments and different tier lists in the description. I'll also go ahead and leave the link to this specific tier list down in there as well, or in the comments below. If you want to create your own and post it to the Discord, I would love to see all of them. See you soon. Pax Magnifica, Bellum Gloriosum.